Welcome, my friends, to Unity South Twin Cities this July the 2nd. Yes, we've entered the month of July. Summer is rolling on. July 4th is Tuesday. In the many years I spent in upstate New York, I learned that summer is July 4th to Labor Day. That's it. Get everything done in that period before snow comes. In my helpful suggestions when I went to Unity of Syracuse, I suggested we move the September picnic into mid-October. It would be more convenient on the calendar. They said, yes, if you'd like to have the picnic in snow, we could make that change. So here we are in the midst of our northern summer. Let's enjoy every bit of it, because it won't be that long that we will be commenting upon the cool weather once again. So I invite you, as we prepare our time together with an opening prayer, please join me. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. We gather today, this very hour, so that for a moment, our eyes can see and our ears can hear what is there about us always. Sleepers awake. The voice of Spirit calls to us. Now let us gift our awakened minds and hearts to the creative presence, you, our Father, Mother, God, in which we live and move and have our being. Let us join now in our statement of being together. There is but one presence and one power in my life, in this church, and in the universe. God, the omnipotent good. And so it is. I welcome all who've joined in the sanctuary this Sunday. It's good to see your smiling faces. And now I have to imagine those of you who have joined us online, I can't see your smile, so I have to sense it with my heart. We're grateful that you have joined Unity South this Sunday. We appreciate your presence in mind and heart this morning. Please use the chat stream to let us know your name and from where you are watching. And now for a couple of announcements. First, I'll begin. Judy and our friend Geoff Jones are our musicians today. Yay! And our live stream team that makes all the magic happen is here in full force with Adam, Joe, and Kenny. Lots of help. So now, let us turn our attention and follow the guidance, our word for the day, with Carlotta as we stand and sing our opening song, "This Land is Your Land."
This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me the endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. This land was made for you and me. I roamed and rambled
Thank you. You may be seated. Announcements. You see by the insert in your bulletin that it is Christmas in July at Unity South. What does that mean? Well, starting next Sunday for 3 Sundays, we will be collecting down in the Rotunda gifts for Oasis for Youth. Oasis for Youth here in Bloomington at Shakopee, Old Shakopee and Penn is an organization that serves young people who are housing unstable or homeless in Bloomington, Richfield, and Edina. It helps them by providing basic necessities, which we hope to restock for them, and personal care products, some clothing, and they also can go to the center there, do their laundry. People help them with a resume if they're looking for a job, help them write a professional resume, and it's a way to support those that are rather fragile among our young community in our area. So, Christmas in July is because when I toured that facility several years ago, they said, you know, I said, what do you need? And they said, at Christmas, we are overwhelmed with donations. But come summer, the shelves get rather bare. So we decided we'll do Christmas in July and help them restock all the items you see on the insert that you can contribute. And of course, we'll accept cash donations as well and go out and shop for those items for you. So, any more questions? See good Carol Moen here, who gets this all organized for us. It is also not too late to join our discovery class, Mastering Life's Energies. We started last Wednesday, even had a good soul way down the Mississippi River in St. Louis who does via Zoom. Yes, you can take the class in person or by Zoom. It's not too late to join, and if you need further information, please see me after the service. Now let's deepen our awareness of the presence within us and among us. I invite you to look around the sanctuary, catch someone's eye, and exercise this practice that's very special about a spiritual community, and that is to see one another and to see one another in our fullness, the divine presence within. So look around and say silently or out loud, I behold the Christ in you. I behold the Christ in you. And now I invite you to turn to the back of the room under the clock where the camera is. Wave at our friends who are joining us from distant places, and let's affirm this truth for them too. Wherever you are, we behold the Christ in you. And so it is. And now use the power of your imagination, one of our 12 powers illustrated in our beautiful windows. Use that power of imagination now to recognize that there are people in our global human family all over this world who are worshiping this week their understanding of God, their traditions of celebration. And let's just give thanks for all those who turn their attention Godward. That is, acknowledging the source and power of all life, working in us all. We honor all people in our global family as they turn their attention toward the source of all. Thanks be. Our daily word today will be shared by our friend Sharon Rollefson. So come on up, Sharon, and guide us in our time of community prayer.
Too many papers. This Sunday, the Daily Word is on guidance. I seek, trust, and follow my guidance. Seeking divine guidance means tuning in and tuning out information and opinions. Turning inward, open my heart with a quiet mind. I can better feel the nudge of my intuition and my inner voice. I receive divine guidance, much in the way flowers in the field soak up the sunshine. Just as following the sun is innate for them, I have the instinct to trust my inner knowing. Even if my guidance surprises me, I trust it. It leads me in the path of my highest good. I follow where I feel called to go. I heed this. I am still, and there's a still small voice within me. And I pay particular attention to the serendipitous circumstance that I find along the way. I seek trust and follow my guidance. As I do, I deepen my relationship with God, knowing wherever I go, I do not travel alone. The Lord will guide you continuously. From Isaiah 58, verse 11. Now join me this morning in our community prayer. We join with Silent Unity and all others in prayer consciousness. We are aware that we are stronger together. We know the emotion and concern for a prayer request can be met by another with objectivity. We are able to pray for one another and recognize the good in each other. It is the object of each person praying to carry the light of God and hold spiritual space. We come together and recognize one another's energy. We are again reminded that we are stronger together. You are strong where I am weak. I am strong where you are weak. However, God within us is strong consistently. God is the wisdom that flows as intelligence through each of us. We acknowledge the prayer requests in our prayer box. We also recognize Jimmy and Cassandra Johnson and their family and pray for their highest good. Together we acknowledge each name in our prayer box, and we are purposeful and kind in God's good awareness. We are healthy and whole as we stand strong. All that we can be and all that we can do flows from each other. Individuals have asked for healing for their physical body and mental condition. We release all thoughts of illness. We affirm that divine life is active in every cell of our bodies. We see harmony and perfect function restored. We acknowledge abundance, supply, and a sense of purpose. We entertain no thought of lack. We affirm divine wisdom. As we return to the physical presence of this room and become aware of our surroundings, let us join together in singing the Lord's Prayer. be a prayer chaplain available to pray with you in the prayer room following the service. And now, Geoff Jones.
Enslaved, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. There'll be no weeping, there will be no crying, no more moaning over me. And before I'd be enslaved, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of gray, for purple mountains' majesty, above the fruited plains. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for patriot dreams that sees beyond the years. Thine alabaster cities gleam, undimmed by human tears. America, America, God shed his grace on thee and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea, shining sea. Shining sea. Amen.
Thank you, Geoff, for inspiring us with those traditional words. But every time we hear them, we must feel them afresh, anew. We can't take them for granted. And today, whether it is celebrating the Declaration of Independence on Tuesday, or whether it is the lesson series that I'm introducing today, the 5 Pillars of Unity, it's still really about the same thing. That is, what is our heartfelt, what is our true intention to move us forward as a church, as a nation, as a world. And although certain words, certain scriptures may appeal to us more, and for others they may not be so meaningful, we have to get inside them. Charles Fillmores said, you have to get behind the words. You have to get behind the idea. What is it about? What is it calling you upward to? And he did something. Of course, remember, Charles Fillmore was a real estate salesman before Unity was founded. And so I used to think he was just boasting like a salesman when he said this. When the first Unity building was constructed in Kansas City in 1906, he was asking everyone to write an affirmation for the growth and development guidance of the Unity work there in Kansas City as they put up their first structure. And you could fill out an affirmation form, and it would be placed in the cornerstone of the building. And so people did. And there were thousands of names sealed in that cornerstone. But Charles Fillmore said, those who take advantage of placing their name and their affirmation of truth in the cornerstone of our new building one day will consider it a privilege equal to the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Well, now, for a long time, I thought, what a boast. Man, that guy knew how to put it across, get people excited. But then I remembered those words, get behind the idea, behind the words. And I realized what I think he was saying was this Unity work was a new attempt. It did not claim to be the only true church or true attempt, but it was an attempt to help people find an inner guide, an inner truth that could shape their life, their path in a productive, healthy, blessed way. And he related that to those who wrote the Declaration of Independence a long time ago. And they said everyone was created equal, with rights that could not be removed, for liberty, justice, the pursuit of happiness. Get behind those words. What does pursuit of happiness mean to you? What it means to James isn't going to help you. What does it mean in your heart? That life has given you the opportunity to pursue the best for you, not in a selfish way. You wouldn't call drawing in the fresh air to sustain your life a selfish act. So the pursuit of your happiness and well-being is also not a selfish practice. We've all been given this right by our Creator. Yet through history, certain times and societies oppressed that God-given right. And so we must always work in our individual lives, in our communities, in our world, toward assuring that right for all. To me, this is what Charles meant in our unity story of getting behind the idea. Unity was declaring for those who chose to participate in it a new declaration of independence. That you could connect with your source of life without any church intermediary. It was spiritual independence to live your life in the best way you could understand and practice. So Charles wasn't fooling around when he made that, what sounds like a boastful statement, that those who became involved in unity as a new idea of spirituality were making a declaration of freedom. God is my source. God gives me mind, heart, and will to act in this life in a way that is true, helpful, creative, beneficial to the greater world, not just my own life. This month, we have 5 Sundays in July, so it was the perfect time for me to introduce this concept, just only born a couple of years ago, of the 5 pillars of unity. What are pillars? Well, as an architectural student in school, I knew well how to define a pillar. Do you? A pillar is a structure used as an essential support for something. This building has footings, little underground pillars that help support the foundation of this structure. So our 5 pillars of the Unity Ministry form the foundation for our work as an individual Unity Church and our work as a global movement of many churches throughout this country and throughout many foreign countries. What does Unity base its teaching and its work upon? Well, these 5 pillars were developed by many Unity leaders a couple of years ago and are receiving more and more attention as we try to reimagine what unity is in this church, in each Unity Church, and in our national and international family. These pillars are intended not only for our unchanging spiritual principles, what we hold to, but are also to support growth and change. There, I said it. That scary word, change. But we, like churches of all kinds coming out of the pandemic, are finding new ways, new creative ways, and ways of necessity to move forward. Our founder, Charles Fillmores, stated, "Life is an ever-evolving, ever-progressing, upward spiral of conscious evolution." Together, no, I'm kidding. Let's hear it again. Life is an ever-evolving, ever-progressive, upward spiral of conscious evolution. Charles believed change was a part of life. There would always be change and always be growth. But there are also principles of truth, spiritual principles, ideals that don't change. They're consistent. Love will always find a way. Truth will be your guide. It's something you can depend on. So we must know our unity story and how it evolved and what truth inspired our work. How did we get started? We need to remember our story so that we can move forward in new creative ways. We must be ever ready for the changes that carry new energy and possibilities forward. To gain some perspective on our 130-year-old family story, I will refer to spiritual dynamics, a model of progressive development that has been built up by scholars over the last 30 years or so. I'll return to that later. So let's begin simply by describing these 5 pillars of unity. Oops, let's go back one. They were developed in the last 2 years, as I said, as a way to understand what unity has taught from its beginning in 1889. To frame our unity in a way that anyone, unity student or not, someone familiar with unity or someone new to the idea, something that anyone can understand. The first pillar we are going to explore today is designated simply as the Fillmores, there on the left. Looking at the coming Sundays, the second pillar we will look at is integral ministry. What does that mean? How do we hold it all together? That's just a preview. The third pillar, experiential. How do we live unity ideas so that they are a real part of us, not just something that Reverend James tells you to remember, but they're a part of your approach to your daily living? Our fourth pillar, it looks like IDEA, but it is IDEA, an acronym for inclusivity, diversity, equity, and accessibility. So we'll be looking at those ideas of how we make ourselves open, accepting, and accessible to anyone. And finally, the fifth pillar, evolutionary thinking. Evolutionary thinking. That simply means, like that quote I gave from Charles a few moments ago, that life is evolving and changing, developing like a progressive upward spiral. So we can't always dig in our heels and say, change? I don't do it. We have to be willing to grow with life, to flow with life. There are underpinnings, pillars, foundations to our truth, yes, that we hold to. But then we must be willing to evolve, to keep these ideas relevant for new people, new generations, new times. Otherwise, the ideas fade away, die away. So keeping things fresh and relevant. So, the first pillar, the Fillmores. Now we can go. This was an interesting one. Our executive director and president of Unity Worldwide Ministries, who was here last December and put on a workshop for many of you, leaders in this church, and for about 30 of our friends throughout the Twin Cities and in nearby cities who came to join us. And he is the first leader of our Unity ministry, the organization that brings all our churches together. He's the first one I've known in my 40 years in Unity to be traveling all over the country, visiting our churches throughout the land, and then sharing his discoveries. And one thing he found in his travels, that he visited Unity centers who even their leaders and board members said, Fillmore, who's that? they knew nothing about Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, who founded our work. Well, I'll make another grand comparison. Can we really understand the story of America without looking back to certain historical leaders, men and women, European and otherwise? We have to understand that story and how it developed. So one of the first pillars that was designed, it's called the Fillmores, a commitment to stay in touch with the teachings of our founders and their contemporaries, those who worked with them, and to keep them a part of everything we do. Not that we travel backwards to meet them, but we bring them forward to meet us where we are today and where we are going tomorrow. So that we know our story, that we know how unity was founded. That does not mean that we can't evolve change, new practices, new ideas, bring new things into the mix. But we at least know what I call our family story. What got us started. What moved us through the 20th century to where we are today. So this first pillar of the Fillmores is far more than simply knowing the history of two personalities who lived in the 19th and early 20th century, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, husband and wife. It includes their personal experiences of truth and the structure they built that involved into our Unity Global movement. Why did they do what they did? What worked for them? And what faded away? They had many initiatives in Kansas City. Judy, they tried to start a musical school, a school of music. It didn't make it. They founded the first radio station in this country dedicated fully to religious or spiritual truths, WOQ, in Kansas City. It broadcast all over this country, was picked up in Europe, Africa, the Caribbean, many places. That radio seeded the unity ideas into the world. But that too came to an end as the government had other ideas about the frequency of WOQ and decided it should be serving business, not spirit. And so they lost that station many years ago. So who was this man from St. Cloud, Minnesota, and the woman from Pagetown, Ohio, a town named after her family, Myrtle Page? We know they met and married and settled in Kansas City, Missouri. Good for them. So what? Why do we have to tell their story? Well, let's move on. Oh, we're already there, to the second slide. Their discovery and experience was organized into principles and teachings to help others discover for themselves what Charles and Myrtle had discovered. Myrtle discovered her healing, that her physical limitations were not permanent, that she could grow through them. She said, I have to understand life more fully if I'm going to stay on this planet. I like that term. If I'm going to stay on this planet. And so she went into a process of self-discovery. And you all know her famous words. I am a child of God, God's creation. Therefore, I do not inherit sickness. I'm not damaged goods, as we would say today. And so she began to focus on that divine life within. It led to her healing. She said, my physical healing's not enough. What about all the other God-given gifts that any human being has? How can I develop them further? How can I grow in my understanding? And then she said, it's not enough for just me. How can I help others discover more truth, discover the life, the gifts within them? Charles, her husband, said, something's going on with Myrtle. She's getting stronger, healthier. And so he too decided, like a good businessman, I'm going to experiment with this idea of hers. And so he decided to donate or to dedicate a certain amount of time every day at the same time, very businesslike, to sit in the silence. And his realization he put this way. He was studying religious and spiritual paths from Hinduism to theosophy, many different things. And he was hearing all these different descriptions about God or spirit. And he said, in all this babble, I'm going to go to headquarters. If this God they talk about is spirit, and I am a living spirit, then somehow we can communicate, or the whole religion thing is a fraud. So he dedicated to daily time in the silence, stillness. And it took time. But he said he began to feel a new energy, a new vibration in his body. He began having very inspiring dream images in his sleep. He began to trust them and let them guide him in the decisions and choices that he made. And so Myrtle and Charles both had their awakening, and people started to gather around them in Kansas City. And they decided, what can we do to help people awaken, become more aware of their own possibilities? And the unity work was born. I'll make a plug here. In October, I'll lead a book discussion group on a book called The Essential Charles Fillmore. It's a digest of his many writings, and we'll explore his ideas which led to this development of unity, which led to even the founding of this, our church, here in Bloomington. So when this first pillar is based on the Fillmore, it's not based on their personalities, but on their discovery, and the fact that they came from a Christian Protestant tradition. And Charles said, we don't disagree with any principles of the Christian church. We interpret them in our own way of inner wisdom. So I don't know if you have, I've heard here in Minnesota, in New York State, where I was, certainly in Missouri, many comments about the Unity Church. One very common one is, well, Unity doesn't teach from the Bible. Well, that's a very intriguing statement, since from their initial publication in 1889, the Fillmores for 70 years in every issue had a lengthy interpretation or Bible lesson. They made it the foundation of their work. In the 1920s, Unity hired many Hebrew scholars, other religious scholars, built a whole team that worked for 10 years to publish in 1931 the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, which takes every proper name of a person or place in the entire Bible and gives from its root word, either in Greek or Hebrew, a basic meaning, an interpretation, something that can get you started in your own discovery, working with biblical accounts and stories and parables and characters. It's one of our most widely sold books. It goes way beyond Unity churches to other denominations and sources that still buy the still printed Unity Metaphysical Bible Dictionary. If you've never seen it, it's in the library in the next room. Go pick it up and explore it. So the Fillmores based their teachings on a Christian view of the Bible, and therefore especially the Gospels that cover the accounts of Jesus' life. If we look on our slide here, in 1998, I was asked to present at the annual Fillmore Festival. It happened to be in Virginia Beach at that time, and I was asked to present a talk there. And I took a good friend from Kansas City who was a very devout Catholic. And he had been attending Unity there in Kansas City. We went to this conference. He heard my presentation of others, and he said, "Wow." He said, "I didn't know Unity had a teaching. I thought you just made up whatever you wanted to make up." No, seriously. He thought Unity was just a gathering of people. They came together, hugged each other, had a good time, had potlucks, whatever. But they had no real teaching or principle behind his work, and he was amazed. In the 1920s, Charles Fillmore developed our 32 articles of the Statement of Faith. When was the last time you saw them? The 12 powers we're a little more aware of. I tried to teach them over time. This congregation went the extra mile. Most Unity churches I know of didn't do this, but because of our previous minister, Ken Williamson's interest in the 12 powers concept of Charles Fillmore, our members created the windows that we have here that at least give us the key word or idea of these 12 divine powers based on biblical teaching, gifts of God, but it's up to us to develop them. God puts a spirit of wisdom or love or zeal, energy in each one of us, but it's like a homework assignment. We have to develop that quality further. It's our work to do. God gives the seed to Carlotta. It is for her to develop that seed into a mighty power of zeal, energy, of understanding, of wisdom, of imagination. Another central teaching of Unity, these 12 powers. Charles Fillmore had a very keen understanding that in the time that Jesus Christ walked this earth, he ministered to people very often through guiding them in their physical healing. Charles said his understanding of the church in the late 19th century, they had forgotten all about physical healing. You simply learned the church's theology or teachings. They didn't talk about physical healing. And so an early emphasis in our unity story was helping people through prayer, as Sharon did today, helping them realize a renewal of their physical healing, health, and energy through focusing on prayer and meditation on the truth of the essential life within them. Our slide notes many other classic unity teachings and writings, but especially Bible metaphysics. And what does that mean? Well, unity's approach to the Bible is we can talk about it historically. What is the history? We can talk about the parable or story that Jesus told. Back on Father's Day, I told the very well-known story of the prodigal son that Jesus used to convey the idea of the unconditional, everlasting love of our Creator for us. So Bible metaphysics is looking at this Bible story or history and unfolding, what does it mean in your life? What does it mean in your life? How do you sense, for example, a story of Moses leading the people out of Egypt in the great Exodus, that essential story that holds together the Jewish community? Their primary story is recounting at Passover every year how their people left enslavement in Egypt and found their own promised land. Well, unity metaphysics would be to look at the components of that story and how do you inwardly feel in your soul the strength of Moses, the trust Moses had in God, the strength that allowed Moses to lead the people. When he said to God, "Why choose me? I stutter and stammer. I'm not a very good speaker. Why do you choose me?" And God said, "Others will help you." Moses' brother Aaron became the first priest of the Hebrew nation. But what kind of inner leader is there in you who will face some kind of obstacle, bondage, oppression, restriction in your life? And as Moses said to Pharaoh, "Let my people go. Let me be free. Let me get beyond this obstacle." The point is not for you to learn historical stories from 3,000 years ago, but to take that idea and bring it into your life, here and now. How can you be strengthened? How can you turn from fear to courage? You never know where it'll come. I was home last night and opened a bottle of iced tea, took that lid off, and sometimes when you turn them over, there's a quotation inside the Bible, or inside the bottle top. And I looked, and here was one from Amelia Earhart, that courageous early pilot. And you know what it said? Amelia's words: "Let your fear lead you to where you keep your courage." Let your fear lead you to where you keep your courage. Well, that's a Moses story, just told in a different way. And to find that inside yourself, to look beyond Pharaoh's armies, all the powers that oppose you, and to go through that Red Sea to a land, to a place, to a possibility meant for you, is a metaphysical interpretation of a Bible story. So when we talk about the Fillmores and this emphasis much on biblical teaching, it's not to go back 130 years to Charles Fillmore and Myrtle in Kansas City, but it's to bring their idea and see how can it energize, alive, and free this church as we go forward in the 21st century. So, if nothing else, remember, I don't suggest arguing with anyone that comes up to you and says, as one of my neighbors in the building where I live, "Oh, you're a minister at Unity. Well, they aren't really Christian, you know." And I didn't want to argue, but I said, "Oh, well, we base our principles of daily living upon the teachings of Jesus. Seems sort of Christian to me." And she humphed and walked off. I didn't make a convert that day. But if anyone says this, you will know better, that Unity has always, from the beginning, worked with our primary textbook, the Judeo-Christian scriptures we call the Bible. Now, I said I would touch on spiritual dynamics, and I don't have the time to go into it this morning, so we will look in it in a future week. But the idea to introduce that into our discussion of the 5 pillars that hold up unity is because spiritual dynamics shows an evolution of consciousness over time. For example, the blue mindset in spiritual dynamics are people who like rules, who like structure, and folks, we need that mindset. That structure, for example, is why we have this church that we sit in today. Was because 40 years ago, a group of people said, "Look at these unity principles. Let's work with them. Let's practice them in an orderly way. Let's put our time, our energy, and even our money behind these ideas." And it led to this beautiful home, ultimately, that we have been gifted in order to have this discovery in unity right here. Not in Kansas City, not in Golden Valley, not in St. Paul, but here. So we'll look at that evolution of human ideas next week as we explore further with our next second pillar, which is that interesting word, integral ministry. It simply means, how do these ideas hold together, and how do they shape everything we do as a unity church and a greater unity movement? It all has to hold together or it falls apart. So that'll be next week's discovery. I invite you now to turn your attention for a moment, and I want us simply to give thanks for the rich variety in the human family, in our world. So let's turn our attention within. Let's feel at home with the fact that we have the privilege to know, to live, to work, to love, to appreciate. Tremendous variety in the human story. We live in a time where many people are choosing sides. How do we learn to hold together, to appreciate one another, even though we may make different choices? We learn that by knowing the Spirit, the life, the animating power within every human being comes from one source. So I invite you to hear these words written so long ago as Paul wrote to the early Christian community in Corinth. Now there are a variety of gifts, but the same Spirit. And there are a variety of services, but the same Spirit. And there are varieties of activities, all of them and everyone. To each is given a manifestation of Spirit for the common good. We're all in the same boat, and we all need each other. Father, Mother, God, Holy Spirit of truth, help us to realize your presence in each and every one, and we are grateful. Amen. And I invite Geoff and Judy to prepare to share more music with us. And as we do, let us bless our offerings. Whatever you choose to give and to support our church family, place your blessing on it. Give it willingly with love to do a good work. I invite you to affirm with me our offering blessing. Together, recognizing the value of this spiritual community in my life, I affirm divine love flowing through me blesses and multiplies all the good I am and have, all the good that I give and receive, and I am grateful.
There are people who have said the problems of today leads them to conclude that for them life is not the way. But every problem has an answer, and if yours you cannot find, well, you can talk it over with him. He'll give you peace of mind. If you feel your life's too hard, just go have a talk with God. Many of us feel this. We walk alone without a friend, never communicating with the one who dwells within, forgetting all about the one who never ever let you down. You can talk it over with him. He's always around. When you feel your life's too hard, just go have a talk with God. Well, he's the only free psychiatrist who's known throughout the world, helping problems with all men and women, little boys and girls. When you feel your life's too hard, just go have a talk with God. When you can't find the words, just say do 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 When you feel your life's too hard, just go have a talk with God. And when you feel your life's too hard, just go have a talk with God. And when your load's too much to bear, just you talk to God and care. And when you feel your life's too hard, just go have a talk with God.
Gentlemen, let's bless our offerings. Friends, these gifts have been given in love and goodwill as a seed to go forth into the world and bless many. God, we are grateful that you work through us individually and as a family. Amen. And speaking of as a family, in our closing song coming up, consider yourself at home. I've been given a message. Please tell people, as you go downstairs for refreshments, go with the flow, because you've never seen so much stuff all over the dining room. We've been busy this week cleaning out every cabinet, drawer, room in this building. And you know what? There were several things I needed in the office, and there were brand new ones still in the package. The problem was the storage rooms were so full to the gills that we couldn't find anything. So we are getting rid of, donating to organizations. If you see something you really like, you can probably have it downstairs. But just setting this church free from 30 years of clutter, no one's fault. It just built up over time, and it's time to let it go. So when you go downstairs, don't be too shocked. Go with curiosity and go with the flow, for this is our home together. Let's stand as we sing our closing song.
Consider yourself at home. Consider yourself one of the family. Ain't taking you so strong. It's clear we're gonna get along. Consider yourself well in. Consider yourself part of the furniture. There isn't a lot of spare. Who cares? Whatever we got, we'll share. If it's your going to be, it's just harder days, empty louder days. Why gross? Always engineering somebody to foot the bill. Then the treats are on the house. Consider yourself our mate. We don't want to have no fuss. For after some consideration, we can state, consider yourself one of us.
As we go, let us remember our prayer for protection. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Let's head downstairs and see what's good. Do, 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 do. Now I'm going to be singing that all week. Do, 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 do.